What's up, everybody? Welcome back. I've got a short video today on building a super simple tray that you could probably use for many different things. I am using it to put some fall decor into to sit in the middle of the dining table that is in our dining room. Now, I'm going to be making this out of walnut to match the dining table that is already in the dining room, but I just want to say you could probably make this out of select pine, knotty pine, oak, poplar, whatever you can get at your big box stores. I know for the hardwoods that at the big box store you can get pre-milled half-inch thick pieces of wood. You'll see when we get into this that the thickness at the bottom of this tray is only a ½ inch thick and the height of the whole tray is only 1 inch. You're gonna see me plane down, resaw and plane down some walnut to the bottom of this tray. But again, you can get already milled ½ inch thick wood at the big box stores. After writing the rough dimensions down on my handy dandy whiteboard, I got my big slab of walnut, took it over to the miter saw, trimmed off so I'd have a square edge, and then I measured off 30 inches so I could get my couple pieces that are 1 by 30. Now, I say 1 by 30 because that is the height by the length. The thickness of this is going to be around 3/4. So again, if you want to use pre-milled lumber or wood from the big box store, it's going to come in 3/4 inch thickness. 1 inch nominal, so you could go ahead and use that and you wouldn't have to joint or plane these boards down at all. My slab of walnut here was almost 2 inches thick, so I put the table saw on 1 inch, I made one pass, and then I took my 1 inch piece and I turned it sideways, put the table saw on 3/4 inch and cut 2 pieces 3/4. So the width of the bottom of the tray is going to be 8½ inches. I wanted to make it out of 2 pieces 4¼ inches thick, so I'm cutting the walnut slab to 4¼ and then resawing it twice. So I had resawn these down to a ½ inch on the bandsaw. So I took these over to plane them. The actual thickness of these is going to be slightly less than a ½ inch because of this planing, but doing it at a ½ inch worked just fine if you're going to use any kind of pre-milled wood. I cut one of my 1 inch by 3/4 inch pieces of walnut down into 2 pieces that were 8½ inches in length each. So because there is no joinery on this tray, and because the bottom piece of the tray is not going to sit underneath the sides pieces of the tray, the length of the bottom pieces of this tray are going to be 28½ inches. That way, when you add 3/4 inch to each side or any side, you're adding another 1.5 inches, because I was looking for a 10 inch by 30 inch tray in the end. Next, I took my 2 pieces for the bottom of the tray and glued them together. Again, if you're not doing any kind of resawing or planing or anything, and you've just purchased 2 ½ inch thick pieces of wood for this part, just cut them to length and glue them up. Next, I just sanded down all the work pieces with some 80 grit and then some 120 grit. So during the glue up of the bottom pieces, one of the pieces shifted just slightly, so I didn't have a completely square edge. That being said, I just took this over my crosscut sled. I could have done this on the miter saw too, but I just used my crosscut sled to square these off so I'd have a good flat surface to put the side pieces. I took my 2 end pieces and I put them in my table saw to get the exact width, and then I ran the bottom piece through to make it the exact same size. Because of the very slight amounts that I took off the bottom piece when I was trimming off the edges to make them square, I knew that my 1x30" pieces were not going to be exact anymore. So I went ahead and just laid them in place, got one side flush, and then I marked where the back end needed to be on the other side for both pieces. Then I took them over to the miter saw and cut them to that length. After it was all glued together, I sanded everything down again with 80 and 120. I put some walnut wood filler on any of the joints that needed it. Last thing before polyurethane was bust out some tack cloth and wipe this whole thing down, try to get all the dust off of it. Seeing as how this tray was only going to hold a little bit of decor and just sit on the table, I knew it wasn't going to take too much of a beating, so I only put 2 coats of poly on here. I put on one, I sanded with 600, and then I put on the second coat. That's also the reason that I didn't reinforce any of these joints. I simply glued this whole thing up. I knew it wasn't going to be holding too much weight or under too much pressure or anything like that, so I just kind of made this the most simple as I possibly could.